Hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm Ankana, your social science master teacher at Vedantu, and I hope all of you are doing absolutely amazing. A very warm welcome to the first session of Growth of Nationalism. Luckily, you can say, or fortunately, this is the only session also. The reason is we're going to complete the entire chapter today in this one session, and you will be sorted. So what are we going to talk about? So guys, this is going to be our index for today's session. Now you might be thinking, hey ma'am, this is not all that's there in the chapter. So let me quickly help you recall that I've already done a session on the revised syllabus of class 10. Please do go and have a look at it. So as per the new revised syllabus, we don't have to do the entire chapter. A lot of subtopics and its details have been omitted. So based on that, we are actually going to discuss about the socio-religious movements and the reforms that took place. Who were these people, important people like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Jyotiba Phule is what we are going to discuss. Then the most important part becomes the role of the press in all of this, and then Indian National Congress, its foundation, how did it start and what was its objective, and we will be talking about the first two sessions of it with the presidents who were there at that time who took care of it, right? So this is what, as per the new syllabus, the revised syllabus is what we need to focus on. So without any further ado, let's quickly get started. So we're going to start with social religious reforms and movements, right? Reform movements. So Bichu, let me quickly give you the background of the country at this time. See, the Britishers have already been there and people have been suppressed by them. But why did the nationalism, or why would we say that this movement, these reforms all of a sudden started, had a story, had a reason behind it. So we will first understand before dwelling into what were these reforms that all of a sudden started. So later in the 19th century, we see that a different characteristic, a different distinct feature started coming up in people, which was the feeling of nationalism, right? It was the national awakening that people started looking at, that people could witness the birth of. Now why was this happening? So we know that the French Revolution was going on, correct? So this French Revolution had created this awareness among everybody across the world, including Indians, right? So, and Indians were at the same time getting educated. They were becoming more aware. They were getting more exposed to the world, to the knowledge, to the world of knowledge. So they were becoming more awakened. They were also becoming more aware, as I told you, and more cautious. They were being more empowered. So all of this together led to the birth of this new awakening in terms of nationalism. Now what do we mean by nationalism? I will get to that, but before that let me also tell you that see, before this it's not like India had ever been one entire nation, so before this India was always divided into small kingdoms, or maybe even if there was a huge empire like the Mughal empire, even then there were few parts which were divided in small states, small princely states, small kingdoms, empires, whatever. So the point is that Indians before this had never been just loyal to this one king and had this feeling of being one, united. So that was also one reason why people did not used to get associated with each other so well. Their allegiance was not with just one person. So we were not used to this. The Indians were not used to this. But now that there were Britishers who were oppressing them, everyone now had something in common despite of being so diverse in terms of culture, language, traditions and customs. And what was this? This was the feeling of being oppressed. This was the feeling of being treated not with justification, having an unjustified treatment, and suppression and oppression. And this is what created a feeling of oneness among people. This is what now started uniting the people. And and that is when they came together. That is because of the oppression by the Britishers, right? So as I told you, why did this start? So it was the impact of the Western culture. People had now started being more rational, more humanitarian, and they had more logical, reasonable, scientific approach. Then of course the educated Indians realized that there was a reformation required. So but why Britishers could also come up and take over our society was that it had become very, very stagnant. There was no development, there was no reformation, and the Britishers took advantage of that. But now that the Indians were getting educated, they were also getting aware and realizing that what were the certain drawbacks which gave the advantage to the Britishers, and they were trying to change that. And that is how their path to progress started. And they also figured that this is not going to just happen by sticking to our own beliefs and system. And they also realized that this is not going to happen by complete modernization and westernization and bringing the culture completely from there. So they figured that they had to strike a balance and bring the best of both the worlds, and that's what they did. They did strike a balance and took up the best from the Western as well as on the Eastern practices, our own traditional practices, and then began the path to progress, then began the path to nationalism. Now you might be thinking, ma'am, we're talking about growth of nationalism, we are discussing so much about nationalism. What is nationalism? So, nationalism is a feeling of oneness when all the people come together and feel united because of having something in common, maybe having common history, maybe having common struggle, common challenges, common culture, language. And we did have a lot of that. We had a lot of common history, all of us, right? And based on that, we had a lot of common present challenges, the struggles that was happening because of the Britishers. And because of all of that, now people had started uniting. And as a result of this, there were a lot of people who started working towards the reform. See, they figured that the society with this stagnation is not going to develop. It's not going to get free from the Britishers. So they had to do, the first change the basics, first change the loopholes that were there in the society, and hence began the journey of the reforms. Now these reforms took place everywhere, bacha. See, economically and politically, the Britishers were dominating. The major reason they could do this was the loopholes in the socio-religious spheres of the society. So people started changing that. And what were the certain changes that came in the social and the religious spheres, if we say? So, sati system, child marriage, dowry system, all of these things were pulling us down. They were not pushing us ahead. They were not letting us come up or develop further. So such outcomes were abolition of sati, caste system, child marriage, etc. And in terms of religious sphere, if I talk, there were a lot of superstitions. There were the idols were being, people had this thing of worshipping idols. That notion, that approach was being attacked. Polytheism was being attacked. Now you might be thinking, what is polytheism? So this is what we need to know. So monotheism was being promoted at this time a lot. And what do we mean by monotheism is, see, mono means one, poly means many. Theism, actually, if you talk about theism is basically God, right? Belief in God. So people had this tendency of, people had this practice, not tendency, people were in practice of worshipping many gods, and that was somewhere creating a lot of, people were not really coming together, were not getting united. So that practice was also being, people were being against it, were kind of criticizing that and promoting monotheism, which is worship of one god, one belief, right? And then of course hereditary priesthood, because whoever has, if my father is a priest, then I will become a priest, and if I'm a priest, my son will become, or my daughter usually did not used to do that, so my son would become a priest. So it was a hereditary kind of thing, like how it was, how monarchy was there earlier. So they were against these things, and these were the changes, these were the shift that started coming into the society. Now, one of the most renowned people who brought this change, one of the most social reformers, were Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He was hugely impacted by the French Revolution and by the growth of nationalism in Europe. Okay, and he did bring a lot of things, inspiration and awareness from there, and brought it in the development of our society. Now, as I told you, there were a lot of factors that led to this movement, and we will one by one pick up on each. So one of the things that Raja Ram Mohan Roy, if we talk about him, was that he was a humanist. He used to believe in humanism. Now you might be thinking, ma'am is going to toss a lot of words. First we were talking about nationalism, now we have humanism. So which humanism is the belief that humans are the essence of the society, right? They're the most important part and they need to be focused on. Because before this, a lot of other things were being focused on. People were not really focusing on the importance of human beings. But Raja Ram Mohan Roy said that no, he was against, before anything came the humans themselves, they were the most important part, right? So he did bring a lot of reforms, and he was very, very educated himself, and hence being so aware, he started bringing changes. And because he was from Bengal, that was the main area where he started bringing up these changes, right? And what was his approach? So one thing that he used to profess was unity of all religions, and he was absolutely against worshipping of many, many gods. He was against worshipping of idols, right? And he used to promote monotheism, as we spoke just few minutes back of what we spoke and we understood, right? And he himself had studied a lot of things. So he made sure that in order to bring this awareness, he should himself be aware. First of all, he should be well informed. So he studied everything. He studied Quran, he studied Bible, he studied Sanskrit, Hindu philosophy, Persian, Arabic literature, and what not. And hence, because of being so well aware, he ultimately wrote a book in Persian called Gift to Monotheists. Okay, monotheists. The reason is because he was against worship of many, many gods, as I told you, and believed in monotheism a lot. And this is what he has argued against polytheism in his book, and has spoken for monotheism in the Gift to Monotheists. Okay, now this was in 1809, this is what he did. In 1814, he actually started a committee, you could say. He started the Atmiya Sabha, which the idea of this Sabha was to fight against worship of idols and meaningless rituals. A lot of meaningless rituals and customs used to exist. This is what he was fighting against. In 1828, he founded the Brahmo Samaj, which again believed in one God. If you see, all of these things is, towards the same line of thought, and he kept on working towards it throughout his life. Now, what this Brahmo Samaj, promoted? So it basically emphasized over that just worshipping the idols is not really going to give you the peace. It's not going to help you being religious. It is way more than just worshipping idols. It used to believe in prayers. It used to believe in meditation, charity, morality, and unity between men of all religion and creeds. Okay, now he was not the only one who was working towards the reformation of the society. The another very renowned person was Jyotiba Phule. So, Bacha, Jyotiba Phule himself was actually educated in an urban setup and came from a lower caste society. Okay, but because he had himself experienced all of this, he had first hand experienced all of this and had gained a lot of education, all his views and visions came from that experience. Anything that he used to say was coming up from, all this criticism of Hindu religion, of the practices of the society, was coming because of his education and his experience that he had throughout his life. Okay? Now, what did he used to work for? So his major contribution has been towards the upliftment of women. In fact, in 1851, he started along with his wife the first school for education of women. How wonderful is that? These guys were, working continuously towards breaking all these social evils that used to exist, all those social evil practices that were prevailing in the society at that time. What wonderful contribution they did, both husband and wife. And in fact, he used to believe that the women are superior to men, which was very, very contradicting to what was the general belief of all the people at that time. But not just that. So both, Jyotiba Phule was basically, he even established, a society, a school for untouchables, and started a private orphanage for the widows, people who were, who had lost their husbands. And earlier, guys, at this time, sati system was, used to exist, as I told you, and these guys were fighting against it, and hence they started the orphanage for these poor people who might be in need of it, because the society, if would not burn them along with the dead body of their husbands, they would maybe discard them, they would maybe just disown them, the family would not keep them with them together. And these guys not just opened an orphanage for them, but pioneered, started the movement towards their remarriage. It was a huge step. The taboo, the social evil practice, and differentiation, and the kind of misbehavior that people used to do towards the widows was how do I describe it? It was just very heinous in nature. It was very, very sad, and they were fighting against it. In fact, he continuously kept on saying that the best, the classic, peculiar example, the epitome of slavery was actually the structure of the caste system that was existing in our society. He used to say that that can be clearly taken as an example, a peculiar example of slavery. And he in fact wrote a book on it as well, which was called Gulamgiri. It described the hardships and the distress felt by the lower caste people of the society. Okay, and Bacha, he also established the Satya Shodhak Samaj in 1873. See, their entire purpose of establishing the Samaj or whatever work they were doing was to give justice to the weaker society. And who were the weaker society? The lower caste people, the women, the widows, all of these, right? And then came the role of press. So, bacha, while all of these things were going on, right, all of these fights were going on, a lot of newspapers were started in the later half of 19th century. And why did this happen? Because people were now becoming aware, right, and media has always had a very, very important role to play in it, and hence was the beginning of these large number of newspapers. Now, the newspapers just not started in English language, but a lot of newspapers were also published in the vernacular languages, in the local languages with which people could relate, with which people could read and understand, because not everyone at this point was educated. And few of the very important newspapers which were actually in English were the Pioneer, the Times of India, the Hindu, etc. Now, what were the motives? What were the main agendas? What were the role of the press, if you say? So, bacha, press helped us a lot in the development of a very strong national sentiment among Indians. Why? Because the kind of messages that they used to carry, right? They were very patriotic in nature. And they used to bring up all of these liberal ideas of equality, of liberty. All of these ideas is what the newspapers at this point were professing, and it was also awakening the people. It was bringing the national sentiment in them. They were realizing what is nationalism. They were realizing the importance of the feeling of oneness. At the same time, they were criticizing the unjust behavior, the policies and the behavior of the Britishers towards the society, towards Indians, right? They were exposing them, what were the flaws, how they were trying to fool the society, how they were trying to suppress the society by saying that they were trying to do good to them. All of these things, all of these policies of the Britishers were being exposed by these newspapers. People were now able to see the truth that was actually existing at that time, right? They also helped the people in exchanging their views in different social groups, right? Because they were different social groups that were able to voice out their opinions, that were able to share what they had in their mind from different parts of the country, because this newspaper might have been printed in Bengal but was being circulated in the entire country. So what was happening in the Bengal, the social group, whatever had to say over there, was now sharing it with the entire country. And of course, it brought a lot of awareness and helped the people in the development. It was very important. Media has always been the pillar of development, right? Okay, now let's quickly discuss about what are certain problems. So whenever I ask the students, they always tell me, ma'am, doubts is something that we struggle with. Notes is something that we struggle with, especially in social sciences. Tests and assignments, we don't get enough tests, we don't get enough assignments to practice. Then of course, competitive exams, choice of schedule, choice of language. I mean, like, it's so difficult to figure out all of these things. You already have to study so much, and then on top of that, you also have to figure out these things. So we thought we should should actually give solution to our dear children and not wait for them to keep on struggling and figure out that by their own. Maybe you would have passed school by then, by the time you figured this out, because that's what happened with me. That's, I'm sure, happened with most of the teachers, master teachers, right? So we came up with the solution for all of these problems, Vacha, and with a lot of bonuses. You're gonna get unlimited classes. You don't have to worry that, oh my god, this session is going live at this time and so I need to join it at this moment, otherwise it will be premiered or I'll have to watch a replay. I don't want to do that. So all of these problems are going to be sorted. You're going to have unlimited live classes at whatever time you're free. You have the choice of going ahead and taking up that live class. Let's say just in case you miss on any chapter, you have all the micro sessions and crash courses to help you with that again. And of course, the in-class live performance reports. Like, what else do you need? If I'm prepared, if I'm preparing, I need to know where do I stand and compare to in comparison to other students, and that is what you get to know right there and then and now. I mean, like, then and there, not then and now, then and there. And of course, personalized attention. Like, who doesn't need that? Everyone longs for that, right? Everyone needs to interact with the teacher and clarify their doubts, ask their questions, whatever they have their mind at the moment while it is happening. All of this is going to be sorted for you guys. All you need to do is go on this link, vdnt.in/ytpro, and go ahead with the subscription of Vedantu Pro. What do you need to do? You just need to choose your grade, choose your board, check out all the details. I mean, like, whatever details you need, all of that you will find right there. And then you just have to click on the subscription button and 3 options will appear in front of you. 1 month, 3 months and 6 months. The bigger package you take, the bigger discount you're going to get and the better advantages you will have. How? So, but if you see 6 months, you will get all of these facilities, notes, doubt clearance, live sessions, micro sessions, all of it. And all of this coming for how much? 9,774 rupees. If you actually calculate being a part of the Vedantu family, working with all of the great master teachers that we have, just for 9,774 rupees, if you calculate, actually comes below 10 rupees per day. You'll be spending less than 10 rupees per day, which is actually lesser than a packet of chips. The cost is lesser than a packet of chips and chocolates that we spend on most of the days, right? What else do we need? So guys, all you need to do is just go on this link, vdnt.in/ytpro, and apply the code AKEPRO. But if you do not apply this code, you won't get that amazing discount that I was just talking about. So make sure you do that, and let's move on to the foundation of Indian National Congress. So now, as I was telling you, in the later half of the 19th century, a lot of reforms are happening, right? People are becoming very, very aware, correct? So now they are becoming very, very aware of what all things were happening, is now making them aware of their condition. And at this point, they're realizing that, hey, the Britishers are exercising a lot of control over us. They're dominating us and we cannot just be like this. They need to go away. We won't be ever be able to be sovereign. We won't be ever be able to be independent if we do not throw them out. Now, in order to throw them out, in order to oppress, oppose and resist the oppression that was happening by the Britishers, this consciousness led to the formation of multiple political groups and associations. One of those is very, very famous Indian National Congress, but Bacha, very interestingly, it was not formed in the very first go. It was kind of a eventual thing, gradual thing. So the association that was earlier formed were many, okay? 2 of those very important associations were East India Association and Indian Association. As I was telling you, that people understood that, Indians will have to unite and take a strong step to fight with the Britishers, give them a very strong front. And that is why they started forming these political associations. 2 of these I just told you about. Now, what were their agenda? Why were these associations being formed? So, but all of them had the same common goal, okay, which was to fight against the Britishers, to lead to the reformations, to make people aware of whatever was happening. And this led to the base, this was the base of the formation of Indian National Congress. Now let's first discuss about what these 2 associations were. So, Bacha, if I talk about the East Indian Association, it was founded in London by Dadabhai Naoroji in 1866, whereas Indian Association was formed in 1876 and was headed by Surendranath Banerjee. Now, what did Indian Association, East Indian Association, as the name suggests, used to do? They used to provide all the informations of the people in India to the British citizens and the members of parliament. So the idea of East India Association was to highlight all the struggles and challenges of the Indian people because of the oppression and bring it out to the world, to the parliament. Whereas the Indian Association was meant to be all India movement, and it consisted of all the Indian lawyers, professionals, educated middle class, and all of these. Whereas the Indian East India Association, if we talk about, as I told you, they used to voice out the grievances of Indians and suggested the remedial measures. They were trying to work for the Indian people only. And the Indian Association had objectives like creation of public opinion, integration of Indian people, promotion of friendly relation between Hindus and Muslims, everything, each and everything that would, make the society more and more stronger to fight with the Britishers, right? And East India Association had its branches all over India. Though it was started in London, but it was having its branches in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. Now, Indian Association also had its branches, but it was more confined to Bengal, in the towns outside Bengal, right? And they used to launch agitations against the License Act, Arms Act. Now, these were their contributions to the reformation of the society. They had launched agitations against all of these unfair acts of Vernacular Press Act, etc. by the Britishers. Now, as I told you, Bacha, this was the beginning of, Indian National Congress. So now we're going to see how it set foot, how it finally set its foundation in the society, and what were its initial objectives. So, Bacha, in 1884, so what had happened now was, see, these people were working towards the betterment of the society. Now, they figured that they had a lot of associations which were in the different parts of India. They needed something to come together and represent all India. So, an association that was going to represent all India was required. And luckily, in 1884, A.O. Hume, who was actually a civil servant, British member of Indian Civil Services, he came with these people, and he started, in consultation with the Indian leaders, laid the foundation of Indian National Congress Union. So his idea of laying the foundation of this Indian National Congress Union was to make sure that all these challenges and the hardships and the miseries of the people of the society will be laid down in front of the government and will be highlighted in front of them. However, whether it happened or not, whether that agenda was achieved or not, that was the objective of the foundation of this union. And that is what A.O. Hume, despite of being a Britisher, was helping the Indian leaders with, right? Now, at this moment, Dadabhai Naoroji realized that they need to do a little change of the name of the union and need to call it as Indian National Congress. And that's how the foundation was laid. Okay, on December 28, 1885, started Indian National Congress, and that is the foundation day of it. Now, what was its objective? So obviously the objective was to promote friendly relation between nationalist, all the nationalist political workers, to develop and consolidate the feelings of national unity, to bring everyone together, irrespective of what their background was, what religion, what caste, anything, no difference was greater than their national identity. To formulate popular demands, right? To bring everything that people had, all their demands, and present it in front of the government, to voice it out in front of the government, and to train and organize public opinion in the country. Correct? Now, after this, the first two sessions. So, Bacha, obviously now the Congress did have their sessions. The first two sessions is what we're going to majorly focus on in this chapter. So, the first session was actually under the presidency of W.C. Banerjee, as you know, and it was attended by 72 delegates from different parts of India. There were a lot of eminent people, a lot of important personalities here as well, like Dadabhai Naoroji, K.T. Telangana, Badruddin Tayabji, Justice Ranade, etc. All of these people were a part of these 72 delegates from different parts of India. Now, the second session happened in Kolkata under the presidency of Dadabhai Naoroji in 1886. Okay. Now, Bacha, these two sessions are very important from the perspective of the beginning of nationalism, the growth of nationalism, the set of the foundation of the Indian National Congress. However, after this, the Congress started meeting, having sessions every December, every year, right? And you wouldn't believe, the participation started from 72 delegates, but it went up to thousands eventually, and that is how the movement started for the struggle. The struggle for freedom began. Okay, now with this we have completed this chapter. If you have any questions, guys, don't forget to put it in the comment box, right? Make sure that you put your all doubts, all questions, all queries in the comment box so that I can pick it up and discuss with you in the doubt and mentee session. Now let's quickly look at your homework question. Who founded the East India Association? Was it W.C. Banerjee, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Jyotiba Phule, or Dadabhai Naoroji? And guys, with this we are done with the session. Do hit the like button if you think it was awesome and helped you complete the entire chapter in one single video. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, guys, because we're going to come with a lot of videos. We're going to come with the doubt and the mentee session, so you should get the notification before anything else, before anyone else, right? And so that you do not miss on the session and are there to have fun with me. And I will see you guys in the next session. Till then, stay home, guys, stay safe. Don't forget to put your doubts in the comment section and do tell me how did you like the session. I will see you very soon, guys. Bye bye. Have a great day ahead.